Hmm. Sometimes things are a lot more complex than what we think. And even though many things are a simple yes and no, what we learned as part of maturity is that such answers are not always the case. I think one of those times is dealing with Iran. Right now, Israel and the United States is bombing Iran. Ostensibly because we wanted to keep them from developing a nuclear weapon. That they were mere days or weeks from actually doing it and making it into a viable weapon. And so we currently are bombing this particular country. Thousands of people are being killed. Not just those that are hardline aligned with the government, but also those who are fighting against the government. In addition, we have the entire world that's been affected by this particular war. Between Russia and Ukraine, there are a few things that are happening, but by and large, it didn't really affect us or other countries, except definitely Europe, where the pipeline that was coming from Russia to Western Europe or Central Europe, where that was interrupted. But we have places where in the Persian Gulf, it's been, the oil tankers have been essentially blocked from either coming in or going out. And it's causing a lot of damage to various economies. Not ours, but definitely those who depend upon oil from the Gulf. Now we're hearing that Iran is expected to start affecting shipping routes in the Red Sea, which is on the other side of Saudi Arabia. But their missiles can reach it, as well as their drones. And it could be very catastrophic. All that does is push up more of the pressure that Iran wants to exact on people so they can turn the agenda against the United States and Israel, of course. And in some cases, it's working. Because don't mess with anyone's money. Don't mess with anyone's economics. That can turn people against you very easily, regardless of what your purpose was for. So, we're seeing that essentially the U.S. and Israel has thrown down the gauntlet, so has Iran. But I can't help but think, and again, maybe I don't know everything, and possibly I don't, but I tend to remember last year, both the U.S. and Israel supposedly obliterated the nuclear facilities of Iran. And when there was someone who said, well, is that really true? I remember hearing this. This reporter asks, is this really true? Is this, could it be some way in which Iran had kept their nuclear material or whatever in a different place, or maybe that it was in hardened silos that the blockbuster bombs couldn't reach? I remember that reporter, again, I'm just paraphrasing, but in that particular sense. But I do remember that reporter being immediately ridiculed and pretty much called stupid, if not that by name, definitely by inference, by our president. How dare you think that anything other than what I've said was the case? Now here we are, a matter of months later, and we went after Iran for exactly the same thing. We added a few more things to it, like getting rid of their head. But this is not essentially taking sides with Iran. No. I think Iran, if it did what it really wanted to do, the U.S. would be destroyed if Iran did what it really wanted to do, because it can't do it at this particular time. But that's why it had proxies. That's why it had Hezbollah. That's why it had Hamas. That's why it had the Houthis. And that's why people are still wondering what other types of sleeper cells has Iran, commissioned. So far, not much has happened, but doesn't mean it won't happen in the very near future. So no, I'm not in cahoots with Iran, no. What I'm honestly saying is, did we do what we're doing because of a miscalculation of what we did in July of last year? Or did we actually lie about what happened in July of last year? These are questions that we have to ask. I'm not saying that essentially the president's a liar or anything like that. But what I am saying is, let's be honest and truthful with what's taking place. Did we or did we not obliterate the nuclear facilities of Iran in last year? And if we did that, then why are we bombing this year? Either we lied then, or we're lying now. And that's something that we really don't want to base our actions on. You have to remember, those who have lived through the Iran, through the Iraqi war. The whole reason why people agreed, Democrat, Republican, especially after what happened with the World Trade Center towers. People were grieving, they were hurt, they were crying, they were angry. We needed somebody to strike out at. And we got this picture of Iraq, Saddam Hussein, hiding weapons of mass destruction they were about to unleash upon the world. And it was drilled into our heads and told about. The government said, yes, it is, yes, it is, yes, it is, yes, it is. And we went and fought that war. Not we, but American soldiers went and fought that war. And many of them came back injured. Some didn't come back at all, at least come back alive. And yes, we got rid of Saddam Hussein, but then we left the country of Iraq without a viable government. As bad as Saddam Hussein may have been, his control sort of kept the peace in the area. Not that we like Saddam Hussein, no. But they kept the peace. When that control was gone, other parties filled the vacuum, including ISIS. And we had a whole nother thing that we had to deal with. We end up seeing pictures of people who were dissidents, Christians, whatever, getting beheaded. So that then told us to go back to the Middle East, try to hunt down ISIS. But the key here was, and there were three things going on that I have to point to. Number one, knowing the volatility of the Middle East, the president at the time, Barack Obama, had asked or had tried to work out a plan to peacefully watch or keep watch over Iran's nuclear capacities. You have to understand, just taking uranium isn't going to make a missile or weapons-grade material. In fact, weapons-grade material has to be some of the most pure uranium available. Has to be processed. It's at a much higher level than uranium that's used for electricity and for power purposes. So to really enrich uranium in that manner, you need time, you need a facility to do that. And the idea was to keep the uranium at a particular level that they could use it for electricity and not for weapons grade. Israel, of course, didn't believe that that could happen. That Iran would just hide things, do shell games, and therefore skirt the agreement that was made. So when Donald Trump came in, he pretty much dismissed it, tore up the agreement, which is his wont to do. But when he tore up the agreement, then that meant that Iran, it just depended upon, did they think that Trump was going to follow through on what he had threatened to do. But in the meantime, they could also try to put things deep underground, whereas you couldn't get to it, and start enriching the uranium with nobody watching them. Then, of course, you had to then develop warheads to be able to carry that uranium as fuel for a nuclear explosion. But in any case, Iran may have been close. We don't know. And that's the thing, we don't know. The head of our government said they were real close to developing a nuclear weapon, real close to having it fire at us. But that wasn't what our own intelligence agencies were saying. That's another thing. It's not just Obama or you're just an Obama fan. No. Our own intelligence agencies were saying they weren't that close. They've been making some progress, but they really weren't that close. Could have been 5 years, 10 years, possibly. But as for right now, it wasn't the case. But does that mean that those who are believing those intelligence reports are really sycophants for Iran, that we just love Iran? No. I don't trust Iran. All I trust them to do is to essentially plot for the destruction of the Western world, especially the United States. As it says, death to America. But I've been used to seeing that ever since the Shah of Iran was overthrown. Been used to seeing that, so that's not anything new. But here's the key. Just because I may question why the U.S. has been so hell-bent on obliterating Iran, does that mean that I want Iran to fulfill its purposes of destroying the United States? No, of course not. So we can't be so quick in doing a either or type of thing, because it's not either or, especially not with what we are seeing today. And the reason why we aren't completely trusting our government is because our government historically, not just Trump, but Bush. I remember when Obama talked about crossing the red line with Syria and its chemical weapons. And then Syria did something and Obama did nothing. Nothing at all. So there's fault in quite a few places. There's fault in quite a few things. But it doesn't mean that because one takes this view that we're on Iran's side. What I just want is truth. And if we're going to go to war and disrupt economies around the world, then let it be for a good reason. Let it be where we actually have the upper hand in reasons why we should do so. And not just to fulfill someone's fantasy. We've been down that road before, and we paid for that. The country that we went into, they paid dearly for it. Their countries, I mean, Iraq is still trying to rebuild from the stuff that was inflicted upon them. But Iran's the same way, except with more people. Over 90 million people. That's a big country. Bigger than Iraq. Then it also becomes, well, what about Israel? What about Israel? What does Israel have to do with all this? Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't even, I mean, he rules by saying that they're going to destroy us, they're going to destroy us, they're going to destroy us, so we have to destroy them first. Which is why he went after Hamas. But in going after Hamas, one-track mind, he also killed a lot of innocent Palestinians. And no matter how much you may want to talk about, well, but they were meant to kill, but there were some innocent ones who died. And with Iran, which want to get people to go and overthrow their government, but as we're overthrowing their government is becoming entrenched. Do we realize that? Again, we're just thinking. See, as saints of God, I'm looking at this in the way of how this is going to affect the return of Jesus. And be honest, the return of Jesus is going to happen regardless of what we think or not, because it's going to happen exactly how the Bible says. So I'm not worried about Jesus coming back. But what I am concerned about is whose side we're on. Because the more I look at it, the more I am becoming more and more convinced every day that the United States is not going to be a part of biblical prophecy, which means either we step back, isolate ourselves, and do absolutely nothing, or we do involve ourselves and we get ourselves obliterated. In any case, that means that prophecy will come to pass. Think about that. Not trying to scare anyone. Again, not trying to scare anybody. I'm not making any pronouncements of the U.S. is going to be destroyed by Russia or be attacked and bombed by Iran or whatever. But we do know there's one man that's going to come. He's going to rule the world before Christ. And for him to do that, either that man has to be from the United States, which I don't think he will be, or that man will have to somehow control the United States, if not destroy it. Just something to think about before we get into another war that body bags are shipped home. It's already started. How many more want to take place? As I said, if you're going to go to war for the right reason. May God bless you, and may He keep you, and keep looking up, for your redemption draws nigh. In Jesus' name.